Hi, and welcome back to Marriage Sensation. I'm Walter Glen.
And I'm Katy Glen.
And we're glad to have you back. Today we're going to discuss a topic that most couples it's going to happen in your life.
Right.
And we call it the crazy cycle. And we're going to start with a story. We're going to tell a little story about how you can get into the crazy cycle. And hopefully by the end of this lesson, we'll see how we can get in it and how we can get out of this cycle. Because crazy does happen in marriage sometimes. Now, the story starts out like this. My wife and I were at a conference, and it got to be about lunchtime, and the conference facilitator, she said, okay, you have several choices for lunch. There's an Arby's and there's a McDonald's that are close by. And that was the good news. The bad news is, she said, you only have about 30 minutes for lunch.
Right.
So we didn't have a long time, and so we couldn't take an extended drive to get to a lunch place and then have to wait in line or have to wait for, our service. So we had to really get in and get out. And so we had gone quite frequently to Arby's. We loved Arby's, as a matter of fact.
We go to Arby's almost every weekend or every other weekend.
We do.
Just, for a quick meal.
And we have our special meals that we get there. And so when she said Arby's, I'm thinking, oh, that's great. Arby's is affordable. It's right around the corner. Literally, she said it's a block away. We can get there, get back, and have some time to eat. And so I said, okay, let's go to Arby's. Immediately, my wife said, well, no, I don't want to go to Arby's.
Yeah. I wanted something different this day.
So I said, okay, where do you want to go? And she said, well, I don't really know where I want to go. And so I'm thinking, well, we got 28 minutes now. The time is ticking. Time is going by. And so I said to her, okay, and we got in our car, we started driving, and she was driving, and she sees the Arby's, and she pulls up in the Arby's. So I said, well, I thought you said you didn't want to go to Arby's. Now I'll let her take over from here because...
Okay, then I said, well, I just changed my mind, since that's where you wanted to go. And he said, yeah, but, you don't want Arby's. I said, no, this is fine. I'll just, can I just change my mind? So we'll just go to Arby's.
Well, and I'm thinking at this point, you're settling for something you really don't want. And so I'm like, well, let's just go somewhere else. Now, I have to give you some background about me. I can go anywhere and eat just about anything. It doesn't matter. McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, Mr. Hero, Arby's, does not matter. My wife is more specific. There's times when I'll say, hey, do you want some Chinese food? No, I don't want any Chinese food. Do you want some Mexican food? No, I don't feel that. There's other times that she wants that type of food. So she's a little more particular with her diet than I am with mine. I can go to any restaurant. It truly does not matter.
And he always told me this, that it doesn't matter. I'll go wherever you want to go. And I'm thinking, well, he should be able to make a choice sometimes, where he actually wants to go. So I figured this was the time for Arby's that, we would go there.
But I also think you never really believed me when I said It does not matter to me.
Because I asked him all the time, where do you want to go? No, he will say it doesn't matter. And I'm like, really? He was like, no, it doesn't matter. And so I'm finding out that it really didn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Wanted to go. So we wind up at Arby's.
So we get to Arby's, and now here's where the crazy cycle begins.
Right.
I'm looking over at her, and I'm thinking, you really don't want to be here, because she said no very quickly. Like when somebody's definitive with their answer, it wasn't a maybe or perhaps, it was a, do you want to, let's go to Arby's? No, I don't want to go there. Now, how 30 seconds later do you want to go there? So I'm thinking, well, I'm not understanding this. So I said, why don't we just go somewhere else? And so she's like, no, Arby's is fine.
So we get our food and we drive back. Actually, we just drive. He didn't even want to order anything. I said, no, you need some lunch. Order some lunch. And, we'll go sit go back to the parking lot and eat the lunch. And so, I mean, we barely ate anything. And at that point, we weren't even talking to each other.
We're not talking to each other.
We're not talking. And so we go back into the conference, and it's just, the afternoon is just blown because of this little disagreement we had with Arby's. And at the end of the seminar, we're goodbye to everybody, and we get back in the car, and I said, I am really sorry for the way I behaved about this Arby's thing, but I knew that was where you really wanted to go, and I wanted you to have what you wanted. And at the same time, he wanted to meet my needs because I wasn't really that crazy about Arby's that day. And so...
And it doesn't matter to me. Remember that.
Right. And
it wasn't where I really wanted to go because it doesn't matter to me.
Right. It doesn't matter. But I'm like trying to, make him happy to go to Arby's. And then he's trying to make me happy because he knows I don't really want to go to Arby's that day. And so it just turned into
a crazy cycle.
And I know these things happen to you all the time. And you just didn't have a name for it. Now you do. It's the crazy cycle.
And it can be as harmless as trying to pick a restaurant,
oh my goodness,
trying to choose some entertainment for the evening. It can be so harmless, and it can turn into a major dilemma. It can turn into people not speaking to each other, people not wanting to eat. I don't even want the Arby's now because this is crazy.
And this is they're just very small misunderstandings that happen to couples all the time. And sometimes you wonder, my goodness, how did we even get here?
How did we get here?
How did we get here? It's just the craziest thing. How did we get over some small misunderstanding? How did we get here?
Well, it's easy to explain when you really think about it. Because we had the best of intentions. We really did.
Right.
I didn't want to go somewhere where she didn't want to go.
Right.
And she thought, well, this is the best place, and I changed my mind. But, I mean, those things happen in a marriage. Those things happen all the time. And we find ourselves in a crazy cycle that spirals and spirals. And how it starts, nobody knows. But it can go places that really can hurt and damage our marriage. It can damage our evening and even beyond if we let it happen. If it happens more often than not or continuously, it can really, really, really seek to destroy the unity in our marriages. So we're going to give you some tips about the crazy cycle and how to get out of it and how it happens. And you've heard our story. You probably have your own, but here we go.
In a marriage, we definitely, love each other, but sometimes we don't see eye to eye. And I think this is when the crazy cycle starts, when you don't see eye to eye and you're arguing over something so trivial that, when you think back after everything is over, you laugh and said, how did we even get there? But in the book of Ephesians, chapter 5:33, it says that husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church, and then for women to respect your husbands. And so when you get into these little, misunderstandings, and it's coming across that, the person's not really understanding or, listening to what you're saying, that women have a strong feeling to be loved. They want to be loved.
And men have a strong feeling to be respected.
Right.
And so that's why Ephesians says that.
Right.
Husbands, love your wives. Wives, respect your husbands. And so now we all have
we actually both need love and respect.
Yes.
But one is greater for one person than the other. Like love is greater for women and respect is greater for men.
Generally speaking, we're wired that way. That's the way God wired us. That's the way God made us. Now we all, as you said, we all need love and we all need respect, but we are geared towards one. One is more dominant than the other, generally speaking.
Right.
And that's what the book of Ephesians in chapter 5, verse 33 speaks of. It speaks of husbands to love your wives. Now, what does that mean? Husbands to love your wives. And see, where does it break down? Here's where it breaks down. First of all, before we go into what it means. It breaks down when husbands are charged with loving your wife, and when you don't feel respected by your wife, it leads to some unloving behavior from us as men. When we don't feel respected, we can be unloving, and it can manifest itself in some of our attitudes and some of our actions.
Right. And when a woman is not feeling loved, then her reaction is to not respect the husband.
To withhold some respect.
To withhold the respect.
Yeah.
And so that love is not given there. So this is how, basically you get back at your husband by not respecting him.
Or even, I'm going to motivate you into loving me by that negative action. Sometimes it's the child who makes the most noise that is the one that needs the most attention from the teacher is the one that needs the most love. So we're you can see where they go hand in hand. When a man doesn't feel respected, there's a tendency to want to. Now we're encouraging us not to do this, is to withhold love. And on woman's part is when she doesn't feel loved, the tendency may be possibly to withhold respect. And
usually whatever the issue is, it's not really the issue. There's an underlying root of the problem. That what is the issue when the issue is not the issue?
Now that's good. And that's what we have to get to. We have to get to the root cause. What's the issue when the issue is not the issue? Arby's wasn't the issue. There was something deeper than that going on there. There was something that we had to work out. There was an underlying issue there. And when we examined it, we really found out that deep down inside, after the conference was over and we were able to drive home, we were trying to really love each other as it came out. I didn't want to go someplace she didn't want to go, and she didn't want to take up valuable time getting somewhere when we didn't have that much time to get there and get back. And so we were really honoring each other, but we didn't know it at that moment. And sometimes you guys as couples, you're gonna be caught in that same place where you're trying to, your wife says something, she's pouring out her heart to you. She's telling you all the deep things of her heart, and you're sitting there and you're not saying a word. And on one hand, what's the tendency to think as a wife then, that he's really not tuned in?
Right, he's not tuned in. He doesn't really care what I'm saying. He's not even. He acts like he's listening, but I'm not getting any feedback.
Yeah, there's no feeling
I'm not. There's no love there, because he's not making any response.
When in reality, he could be really trying to listen to you and hear you and hear what you have to say, and he doesn't know the words to say to you at that point, and he's trying to feel his way through that situation. So,
a lot of times in these, when you have this crazy cycle, somebody's needs are not being met. And that's that issue, that is the issue that, what did I say? Where the issue is when the issue is not the issue.
Right.
And usually it's like somebody's need is not being met. They're not understanding what I'm trying to convey to you. They're not listening really as to what is going on in my heart. And so that crazy cycle just comes up on you. The one thing about the crazy cycle that we went through with the Arby's thing is that even though when we figured out, that we were trying to please each other, and that was the positive part of it, but it came out negative.
Yeah.
It came out negative, and that's what you have to think about. You got to weed that. It's like, okay, let's stop and start again, because there was no animosity. It just flared up into this crazy thing.
Now the crazy cycle is like a loop.
Right.
It's like a circle, and you'll go round and round and round until we decide to exit off the crazy cycle.
Right. So we have to have a conscious commitment to respect our husbands, love our wives, no matter what happens.
Right. My love for you should not change no matter what state,
Exactly.
what condition we're going through.
Right.
And that's how we get off the crazy cycle.
Right.
If I continue to love you, even in the
Right.
midst of challenges,
Right.
that's how we step off that crazy cycle. If you continue to respect me,
Right.
even though we're on maybe I've made some bad decisions, maybe I've messed up some money or messed up some things that are very important to us. But if you continue to respect me, that's how we come off the crazy cycle and
Right.
we get back to some normalcy in our life.
Because when you get on that crazy cycle, your spirit deflates, and
Now talk to us about that real quick. What happens when you get deflated, you personally?
When you get deflated, I get very quiet, and I just don't say anything because I don't have a response. I don't have a response at the moment. I have to kind of process things, and if that happens too often, my love tank is getting lower and lower, and that's when my spirit is so deflated that he's not making any deposits into my love tank.
I think when my spirit gets deflated, when I don't feel respected, I do tend to not necessarily withhold love, but I just tend to really, really, really go inwardly with myself and become a little more distant. And so that's a challenge. I have to really. Most of the gospel of Jesus Christ is counterintuitive to, the scripture tells us to love our enemies. Now our wives are not our enemies. I'm just giving an example of why it's counterintuitive to what we naturally would want to do. Naturally, we want to withdraw from a person during a conflict, but in fact, when it's our wives or our kids or someone dear, close to us, or even someone who's not close to us, we need to embrace. We need to seek understanding at that point. How can we build a bridge to this person? Because when a spirit is closed, it's like a flower. During the sunshine, during the day, the flower opens up and it spreads out. But in the evening, when it gets cold and damp and dark, the flower closes in. It can close in. And that's how our spirit can get. Our spirit, when it gets deflated, can really close itself off. And then communication becomes very difficult. And really, really breaking that cycle becomes very, very hard.
So just know that you are going to, if you haven't already, will encounter the crazy cycle. And so just stop and think about what is going on and break through that.
Continue to love and respect each other.
Continue to love each other. Continue to respect each other. And you will get through it.
Now, we are going to have a Crazy Cycle Part 2 that gives you more definitive ways of really, really breaking that cycle. But that comes in another session. So until next time, we want your marriage to be sensational.